Today I'm going to explain how you can transform your confusion about your IBS and SIBO diets into a confident plan, so stay tuned. If you're new here, welcome. My name's Amanda Malacheski. I'm a certified functional nutrition health coach and a digestive and allergy detective. For weekly videos on how to find your personalized IBS and SIBO diet and supplement plan, please consider subscribing and be sure to hit the bell to be notified when I post a new video every week. One of the most common things that I hear from my clients and other people that I meet online is, I just don't know what to eat anymore for my IBS or SIBO, or I just am so confused about all the conflicting information, I'm ready to give up. As the host of the Calm Digestion Method online program and coach to hundreds of gut health clients, I have figured out how to help you find the most likely diet to help your IBS or SIBO symptoms. So in this video, I'm going to share the 4 key tips that helped my client Darren figure out what was triggering his extreme bloating, and that also helped my client Steve figure out what was making his constipation way worse. So I'd like to do this for you too, so let's get started. As you can see this week, I am in a new location. I'm down in Oakland, and I apologize for any background noise that may be happening during this video. I don't have as much control as I normally have over my recording space. So tip number 1 to find your ideal IBS or SIBO diet is to choose a diet that's likely to address the underlying cause of your unique symptoms. So one of the first questions that you likely asked when you figured out that you had IBS or SIBO, or you suspect that you have IBS or SIBO, is, what diet should I be eating to improve the situation? And if you did a Google search on this question, you probably came up with a list of diets that are supposed to help in this situation. So these are things like the low FODMAP diet, the specific carbohydrate diet, maybe the GAPS diet, maybe the fast-tracked diet, and maybe a low fermentation diet. And then what a lot of people do is try and figure out, okay, well, which of these diets do I need to use? And then even worse, some people go even farther down that rabbit hole and try and figure out how to combine all of those diets and put them together into what I call a Franken diet, which is a combination of all of these therapeutic diets. Now, I would say that most people promoting these diets are recommending them on the basis of symptoms. Like the GAPS diet is recommended for leaky gut, and maybe the low FODMAP diet is recommended for IBS in general. But really, each of these diets is trying to address a specific potential underlying mechanism of symptoms for you. So the low FODMAP diet, the specific carbohydrate diet, and the low fermentation diet are all aimed at addressing fermentable carbohydrates and fibers, which may aggravate IBS symptoms. Whereas the GAPS diet is intended to help repair the gut lining if you have leaky gut and are maybe having immune-related symptoms to proteins getting through your permeable gut lining. And the fast-track diet is for people who have sensitivity to both FODMAP foods and histamine foods. I don't really like relying on symptoms to choose your diet because the symptoms can be caused by lots of different mechanisms or causes. So instead, I like to recommend a different approach for my clients inside my Calm Digestion Method program, where we reverse engineer the appropriate diet by trying to understand what the underlying mechanism of those symptoms are. So how do you do this? Well, the first thing to do is to make a list for yourself of the foods that you know for sure bother your symptoms. Then you're going to compare that list to the lists of foods that you're supposed to avoid on the low FODMAP diet, the low histamine diet, the GAPS diet, whatever diet you're looking at. And whichever diet best aligns with the foods that you're already needing to avoid is probably the diet that's addressing your unique underlying mechanism for your symptoms. So my client Steve, that I mentioned earlier, knew that gluten and dairy were problems, and he also noticed that when he started eating a diet that was much higher in vegetables, that he was having more symptoms. And so this kind of pointed to fermentable carbohydrates and likely the low FODMAP diet being appropriate for him. And that's what helped turn around some of his symptoms. Now, if you're not sure which foods are your problem foods, then you're going to have to backtrack a little bit and do a little bit of legwork to try and figure this out. And the way that I recommend people figure this out is by working with something called a food symptom diary, where you track your food intake, your symptoms, and what your bowel movements are doing over, say, the course of a week. And then you work to try and make some correlations to see, well, what's most likely on this menu that I've been eating to be causing the symptoms that I'm seeing. I've made a whole other video about this topic, so if this is something that you need help with, doing some food tracking to figure out what's causing your symptoms, I encourage you to check that out. I'll leave a link in the description below this video. Once you get clarity about this, or at least you have a suspicion, then you can take that to make your list of foods that are causing problems for you and compare that to the diet lists. After figuring out what you think is causing the problem, your next step is to test out your theory by doing a food elimination experiment. Now that you have a suspected diet that you think might be right for you based on what your body is telling you, now you're ready to remove the foods that are suspected to cause a problem with that so you can test out your theory. Now, do you know for sure that this diet is going to help you? No, you don't. But that's why you're going to approach this as an experiment that you're going to do temporarily to see if you're right or not. This means that you're going to try the diet for maybe 2 to 4 weeks and see what happens. How does your body respond? What changes, if anything? While you're doing this elimination diet, you want to kind of just generally keep track of the frequency of your symptoms that have been problematic for you to see if you're making progress or not, because at the end you're going to be asking yourself, how did I do on this experiment? So keep track of those symptoms no matter what they are, whether they're burping, farting, heartburn, gas, bloating, whatever. So I'm curious to ask you, do you have clarity about exactly which foods are triggering your symptoms? Click like if that's the case down below, or leave me a comment to tell me a little bit more about that. Your next step after you've performed this elimination diet experiment is to ask yourself the question, am I better, the same, or worse? If your symptoms improve, then obviously the mechanism of symptoms that diet is addressing is part of your symptom picture. This is absolutely key information so that you understand what's going on. And if this is the case, then you're going to do some reintroductions of foods to try and pinpoint exactly which foods were the problem. If you did see improvement from that diet, this is crucial information for you to help you manage your symptoms. It helps you understand what you need to do to stay well, and it also gives you the power to say, well, I'm aware of what's going to happen if I eat this food, but maybe I'm going to eat it anyway. Now, if your symptoms stayed the same, there was absolutely no change, then obviously that diet has nothing at all to do with your symptom mechanism, and you can obviously throw it out. You don't need to continue on a restrictive diet for something that's not helping you. Then obviously, if your symptoms get worse, then you would stop using the diet. But this is kind of an interesting situation where this failure of the experiment is actually something that includes useful clues for you that you can try and use to figure out what else is going on. So for example, if you started the GAPS diet because you learned that the GAPS diet is good for leaky gut and you think that you have leaky gut, but you felt absolutely worse on the GAPS diet, this can tell you that you may have trouble digesting fats because the GAPS diet is very high in fats. So this may point more towards a need for supporting your fat digestion instead of focusing on the leaky gut right now. Essentially what I'm saying here is that you want to connect your choices to what your body's telling you and how it's responding to make your choices and move forward. Now, what if you're one of these people that no matter how many diets you've tried, you haven't been able to find a diet that helps you? Well, keep in mind that in a lot of cases, food has nothing to do with your symptoms, or there's just really not any ground to be gained with that. And so when this happens for people, this is a moment when I want to encourage my clients to start looking for deeper underlying causes. And typically this involves either looking for infections with things like the GI map stool test or SIBO testing, or to look at what's going on with your digestive secretions and your basic digestive function. It's really important to realize and take note that food may not always be involved. And if we doggedly pursue this path, even though we're not seeing any improvement, this can lead a lot of you down the path of extreme food restriction, which is really difficult socially, can lead to malnutrition, and can just kind of make you crazy. So if you're not seeing results from lots of food experiments, it's okay to move on to something else. Don't feel stuck in the sense of like, I have to figure out what food is the right food. You may be in a situation where you just have to deal with other pieces to feel well before you can address food. I do have lots of videos on my channel where I talk about GI map stool testing, SIBO testing, and so on. So check out some of those other videos if you want to learn more about that. So I hope this conversation helped you rethink your diet changes for IBS and SIBO and helped you put them into a useful perspective. Essentially that you really want to be paying close attention to what your body is telling you that you need and how your body's responding to these changes to decide whether or not to continue with them. And more importantly, it's important to focus on what you suspect is the underlying mechanism so that you can rule out causes so that you can stop paying attention to them. Mostly, I hope that this video can save you a lot of frustration and annoyance and irritation and make things easier for you on your journey to figure out what's right to be eating right now. Now, if you've felt confused about how to figure out what's appropriate for you to be eating with your IBS or SIBO situation, I really want to encourage you to download my free guide called The Roadmap to Gut Recovery. Inside that guide, I share the exact strategy that I share with my IBS and SIBO clients inside my Calm Digestion Method program to help them find their personalized plan for calm digestion. It's definitely an extension of what we've talked about in this video today. So if that sounds great to you and you need help with that, please go ahead and download a copy of The Roadmap to Gut Recovery. You can find that at confluencenutrition.com/roadmap. And I will leave a link for that in the description below this video, and here it is on the screen for you as well. All right, let me know if this video was helpful for you by clicking like or leaving me a comment. And next, you might want to watch this video titled The Top 3 Diets for IBS and SIBO. These may help you further refine your search for the right diet for you. See you all next time.